And the players all wore these absurd t-shirts saying, "Pay us what you owe us." Be careful there, ladies. Be careful what you wish for, because the WNBA loses $40 million a year.
This time they decided to protest by wearing t-shirts that say "Pay us what you owe us" for warm-ups before an all-star game. The only issue is the WNBA is not profitable yet.
They all arrived together, sporting brash jerseys that read, "Pay us what you owe us." The league is in danger of being drowned by a financial storm that lies beneath that rallying cry. Despite a record-breaking season driven by Caitlin Clark's fame, the WNBA lost an incredible $40 million last year. Additionally, players are increasingly louder than ever in their demands for more money. So, are they finally going to receive what they've been fighting so hard for? Or might the league be on the verge of collapse due to this poorly thought-out move? Keep an eye out. This one is going to catch fire. WNBA players want a pay increase in light of growing losses. What was to have been a celebration of athletic achievement swiftly devolved into a daring political statement on July 20th, 2025, at Phoenix's Footprint Center.
Caitlin Clark did do a little, they called it like a fireside chat. And one of the questions that the host asked her was what TV shows or movies she was watching recently. And she did mention that she has been in the hyperbaric chamber nearly every day, and she's spending about an hour and a half in there with her recovery. So she said that she's been watching movies every day. Another form of recovery that she also mentioned was needling. So it seems like she's doing some needling to try to heal her body as well. And when I say needling, not acupuncture, it's like dry needling. It seems like she is getting those sort of treatments as well. But other than that, we don't really know what is going on. So I don't want to spread rumors or speculate too much. Obviously want to wish her the best and hope that she does get back on the court sometime this season. And hopefully the Indiana Fever can make it into the playoffs, get a decent seed in the playoffs, which I do think with the roster they have, with the girls that they have, that they can absolutely do that. And I'm kind of tired of seeing all the fans crashing out.
In addition to their smiles and sneakers, WNBA All-Stars also wore matching shirts that said, "Pay us what you owe us," in block letters. It was noisy. It was more than simply fashion, and it was united. It was a strategic statement from a league that was deeply involved in player-executive collective bargaining negotiations. This was no isolated demonstration. During warm-ups, all of the All-Stars wore the phrase, highlighting the growing tension behind closed doors. Despite the moment's seeming force, reactions off the field revealed a different picture. Many supporters checked out, particularly after learning that Caitlin Clark would not be performing. Interest plummeted. Some said that without her, the event was a complete failure. Some were even unaware of the significance of the clothing. And an increasing number of people questioned what they were really due. The players' frustration is undeniable. They desire a larger portion of the pie. And that message is relevant at a time when female athletes are calling for respect and visibility. This is where it becomes complex, though. The figures are honest. The WNBA recorded an incredible $40 million in losses in 2024, despite Caitlin Clark's rookie wave helping ticket sales and attendance across the country. The league had never gotten so much interest. It continued to sink farther into the red. However, a lot of players and their outspoken supporters think the system is biased against them in spite of the financial warning signs. They contend that the league has never received adequate funding or promotion. They cite the NBA's decades of assistance, likening it to a crutch instead of a collaboration. Critics, however, have a different opinion. They contend that the only reason the WNBA is supported is because the NBA permits it. The league might not even exist without that support. Therefore, some sports fans consider it tone-deaf when athletes publicly and visibly demand more money during an all-star game that is already losing its appeal.
To be here with you guys today, Caitlin Clark is out for the foreseeable future. No timetable set in stone for her return. The injury and the status of injury still in limbo to a certain extent. So the Indiana Fever front office, they needed to act. They needed to act fast. They needed to go out there in the pool of free agents and sign somebody that can hopefully come in right away and contribute. While Brianna Turner is over there collecting dust, we need somebody off the bench that can come in with some size and rain threes until Damaris's dentist shot begins to fall, and we go out and we get one Chloe Bibby. Last time we saw Chloe Bibby, she dropped 12 points against the Indiana Fever. Wait for it, in her WNBA debut. She shoots over 40% from the field. She shoots over 40% from three. But before we get into that, Caitlin Clark breaking records on the court, breaking records off the court. Record smashed. Caitlin Clark's flawless Logo Woman 1-of-1 autograph has just set the record for the highest selling WNBA card in history, selling for $660,000 at Fanatics Collect. $660,000. God damn.
Examine the space. If the WNBA disappeared tomorrow, would the market even notice? One pundit stated plainly, although harsh, it speaks to a more profound reality. The cultural impact of the WNBA is still minimal. In contrast, college women's basketball consistently outperforms the pros in terms of recognition, excitement, and viewership. That was supposed to be changed by Caitlin Clark. Sold-out arenas, millions of new eyes, a new spark, and unending media attention were all brought about by her arrival. However, some believe the WNBA is wasting its resources since she has been sidelined and injured more frequently than anticipated, and because of the controversy surrounding the league's handling of her fame. Wonderful chance. Critics claim that rather than focusing on improving their most important asset, the league appears to be more concerned with sending signals than with finding answers. And now that players are demanding more money as their losses increase, the issue is more about survival than justice. However, what occurs when declining profits collide with growing demands for compensation? Watch closely to learn why, in spite of the statistics, WNBA players are asking more. The WNBA players' message was still evident as the dust cleared during the All-Star Weekend in Phoenix on July 20th, 2025. However, even though the top athletes in the league made a noticeable and cohesive declaration regarding respect and money, the public's reaction has been anything but. There's more going on beneath the noise. Desperation, frustration, and, some critics claim, a healthy dose of delusion.
Over $500,000 for a Caitlin Clark autographed basketball card. This cruised past the previous record, also held by Clark, of $366,000. We didn't cruise past the record $375,000. We didn't cruise past the record $400,000. We didn't cruise past the record we obliterated. Wait, like I brought the card, folks. I don't have money like that. I got nothing near that. From $366,000 to $660,000, Caitlin Clark hype is real. The effect is real. And by the looks of things, by ratings, collectibles, cards, it is not going away anytime soon. The only thing stopping Caitlin Clark from continuing to achieving, from continuing to blowing these things out of their numbers, might be the Indiana Fever and Stephanie White. Let's get right into it. Caitlin Clark sat out for a third consecutive game on Thursday night due to her injury, as the Indiana Fever secured a much-needed 80-70 win over Asia Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces. Clark, still nursing a re-aggravated groin injury which previously cost her 5 games on the sideline in June and July, is now looking like she's going to miss an equal amount of time, if not longer, after the Fever announced on Thursday that she still has no timetable for return. Clark's injury, however, did not prevent the 23-year-old from making WNBA history on Thursday night. This is after the flawless Logo Woman 1-of-1 was purchased via Fanatics Collect for a mind-blowing $660,000. Absolutely insane.
Or the reasons why elite talent frequently appears underutilized or underappreciated. Many analysts believe that the league continues to impede its own progress and blame others for the consequences. Therefore, the question that remains unanswered as gamers speak up and demand more is not simply what they want. Do they actually have the same perspective on the world as the rest of us? What occurs, therefore, when the league barely survives despite the players' demands for more? Continue to observe. This becomes quite intense. Shut it down or pay us what you owe us. The WNBA was in the midst of a firestorm at the end of July 2025, which it partially started. After players bravely sported shirts calling for payment of their debt over the All-Star weekend in Phoenix, sparking a national debate. Proponents referred to it as a strong equity move, but critics saw something quite different. The league is now bargaining over money that doesn't even exist because it is so disconnected from the realities of finance. It becomes ruthlessly ironic at this point. Some claim that closing the league down completely would be the only reasonable course of action if it truly paid the players what it owed them. Because the important math is right here. The WNBA does not make money. Money is lost as a result. In 2024 alone, even though the Caitlin Clark effect led to a record-breaking year, nevertheless, the league reported a $40 million deficit. That is a crater, not a depression. Furthermore, it's not a one-time error. Year after year, this has been the financial pattern. Critics contend that Adam Silver and the NBA have maintained the league on life support, which is the only reason it continues to exist.
Insane, unheard of. What's your worth? What somebody's willing to pay. What's your worth? What somebody's willing to pay. So how much is that card worth? Somebody was willing to pay $660,000. That's how much that card's worth. Absolutely unheard of. Caitlin Clark, talk about a pioneer. As indicated in the past, talk about a pioneer, folks. Did anybody ever care about WNBA basketball cards until Caitlin Clark? Seriously. Did anybody care about WNBA basketball cards until Caitlin Clark? Did anybody care about an Asia card, a Nafisa card, a Sabrina card, and anybody else card until Caitlin Clark showed up on the scene? And all these collectors were like, I'm diving headfirst into the Caitlin Clark collectible market. I'm diving headfirst into the Caitlin Clark WNBA card market. And as Caitlin Clark's prices raise, everybody else's prices are raising as well. The Asia cards are growing. The Sabrina cards are growing. The Angel Reese cards are increasing in price. Caitlin Clark has started a new market in the card collectible space. The new market, WNBA cards being collected. It's absolutely unreal. As indicated in the post, Clark nearly doubled the previous record for the most expensive card in history. It was also the reigning WNBA Rookie of the Year, who held the previous mark with her 2024 Panini Prism Signatures Gold Vinyl Prism that was sold for $366,000. Insane. $660,000 is a lot of money. However, collectors are more than willing to shell out these types of sums under the premise that it is an investment for the future. It's worth $660,000 today, might be worth $750,000 tomorrow. Worth $750,000 tomorrow, might be worth over $1 million in 2 years.
Players are, however, calling for greater pay in the face of these losses. Why? The explanations aren't taken from spreadsheets, though. They have a deeper foundation. Players contend that they continue to receive far less money than their male colleagues in spite of their rigorous training, lengthy travel schedules, and growing cultural significance. They claim to have put in just as much work, endure comparable physical stress, and give up their time and bodies in ways that most fans never witness. For many, dignity is just as important as money. Some mention their expanding platforms. Caitlin Clark, Asia Wilson, and Angel Reese are now well known. They sold out of their jerseys. Their fan bases on social media are comparable to those of NFL players. They then ask why, whereas NBA benchwarmers make millions, their pay is still limited to the low 6 digits. However, the market isn't driven by emotion, as critics swiftly point out. It operates based on demand. There won't be any money to split if people don't purchase tickets, watch games, or tune in. No matter how not about who has the best stats, it's about who can sell. And if the stars can't convert popularity into profit, then where exactly is the money supposed to come from? The league isn't just facing a money problem.
So it could be a come up depending on who you are. Depending. Clark has firmly established herself as the biggest name in the WNBA, and as proven by this latest record-breaking purchase, fans and collectors alike are adamant that her stock will continue to rise in the coming years. The fact that someone out there is willing to spend well over $500,000 on a collectible bearing Clark's name goes to show that at this point, the hype is no longer just noise. It's real, measurable, and growing. The market understands Caitlin Clark's worth. The market understands Caitlin Clark's notoriety. The market understands what Caitlin Clark brings to the table, but Kathy Engelbert just doesn't get it yet. The Fever, they just don't get it yet. Steph, they just don't get it yet. I don't know what it's gonna take, but sooner than later, hopefully they figure it out. Chloe Bibby, welcome to the Indiana Fever. Chloe Bibby, you are the latest and greatest signing that we have picked up this year. The Indiana Fever have signed Australian forward Chloe Bibby to a 7-day contract, the team announced today. Bibby most recently featured with the Golden State Valkyries with 2 stints during the 2025 season. During the preseason, Bibby appeared in 2 games, averaging 5 points, 1.5 rebounds per game.
It's facing a value problem, one that shirts and slogans alone won't fix. So, how did one star hard effort is what everyone does? That's the harsh truth, and it's the cold reality. Players are only worth what the market is willing to pay to watch them play, not what they believe they should be paid or what they hope to make. And the disconnect is most noticeable there. The numbers remain unchanged even if you wear a "pay us what you owe us" shirt. It does not transform losses into gains in a miraculous way. Furthermore, many experts in sports business believe that the WNBA's present demands are more like denial than negotiations. Even supporters of Angel Reese acknowledge that it's revealed a crisis of values that the league cannot resolve with slogans. This is something you should not miss. The cost of perception. 1 star, 1 shot. The elephant in the room, Caitlin Clark, becomes unavoidable as the WNBA's financial difficulties take center stage. Even though the league has dozens of excellent athletes, just one name constantly makes an impact on media buzz, ticket sales, and public attention. And that's precisely why the ongoing salary battle feels so complicated, so intense, and, some claim, so irrational. When EA Sports made public the fans were taken aback by the cover athletes for its 2025 basketball video game. The women's version featured WNBA player Angel Reese, while the men's edition featured Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The Legacy edition was given to retiring NBA legend Carmelo Anthony. However, the topic of discussion on the internet wasn't the cover artist. Who didn't? Was the question.
So today, lads, we're going to be talking about this article right here, and it is an article from The Guardian, and I just kind of read through some of it, and I'm like, why is the WNBA, everything around the WNBA, so scared to actually, tell the truth? So scared to tell the truth. Because I think the only way everything progresses is if you tell the truth of the league. And I do think when it comes to, I do think there's no point in arguing being like, oh, the league is nothing without Caitlin Clark. Because I think that's a false argument. I think you can go in 2 extremes the other way. But this literally sounds like this is just propaganda. It's just absolute propaganda. So it's like in All-Star voting, players rank Caitlin Clark 9th. Is that absurd? And they were like, fiction, truth. So this is the truth. It is absurd. Or, to be sure, Clark's a lot of work to do before she turns corner being the league most exciting player, become the league's best player. In PER, whatever. This year, Clark struggling with injuries. They have a trio of generational talent guards who came into the league. First was Sabrina Ionescu. First was meant to have been Kelsey Plum, but she was never that good. Sabrina was not Caitlin Clark good. And Paige Beckers is not Caitlin Clark good. We can just be honest with that. And also, Juju Watkins is not. Juju Watkins, what people don't realize, Juju Watkins might be, when it's all said and done, the most disappointing basketball player in the women's side ever. I'm not saying Juju's going to be bad. She shoots 40% from the field.
More is what the players desire. However, the general population is still unaware of or indifferent to what they are purchasing. And if the public doesn't care, might they win the battle for justice and fame? To find out, keep watching. The WNBA's struggle for dignity, worth, and a bright future. At least on the surface, the atmosphere around women's basketball had changed by the middle of 2025. Thanks in large part to the star power of players like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and AJ Wilson, the WNBA has concluded one of its most watched seasons in history. Arenas in places like Las Vegas, New York, and Indiana were crowded with fans. Every game had a buzz on social media. At last, highlights were making inroads into popular sports segments. But the frustration increased along with the cacophony. A demand that had been growing for years was behind the cheers. Give us the money we deserve. This was not a philanthropic appeal. It was a demand based on the logic of the market. For many years, detractors argued that there was no economic rationale for funding women's basketball. They contended that there is no return on investment.
She will give you 25 points. Like, she is a free throw. Like, you watch Juju for a full game. She is a free throw. She's an inefficient free throw merchant who can't really shoot the three ball unless she's wide open. And, like, that is the problem with Juju Watkins. A hell of a player. But, like, when we're putting her in the Beckers and Clark conversation, no. We're not doing that. We're not, like, I'm not even putting her in the Page conversation, let alone the Caitlin conversation. Like, that is, like, for me, Hidalgo was better than Juju Watkins for the vast majority of their freshman and sophomore, or for a vast majority of their sophomore seasons. Like, Madison Booker's team was much better, but I think Juju's better than her. But Sarah Strong, who's a year younger, is even better than Juju. So, it says here, fans got it wrong ranking Clark first and UNESCO fifth, but the players' vote were harsh on stars. An Olympian, Jackie Young was 12th, Kelsey Williams was 16th. For once, the media may have gotten it right, ranking her third. So they actually did call out the players. It says, is the league too dependent on Clark? It says here, WNBA is headed towards the highest average attendance ever, propelled by somewhat Clark, but beside the expansion Valkyries. But I'm like, if we're being honest here, the Valkyries thing is because it's in, like, Golden State, it's in San Francisco. Nobody watches the Valkyries on TV. That's the issue. Is yes, their attendance numbers are good, but you're like, ratings drop when she's out injured, they don't fall through the floor. Man, minus 50% is crazy. And the scariest thing is that when Caitlin Clark is injured, other teams' views fall by less than Fever's do. Because the Fever are still the most viewed team without Caitlin Clark. But, like, when Caitlin's injured, people don't watch other teams. That is the scariest thing about it. And it's like, perhaps the fact Clark's not immediately established as the best player in the league has made people realize veterans. Like, what are people talking about? You mentioned Brittany Griner. Brittany Griner's been garbage this year, no offense. Like, this is just propaganda, truth fiction. Ironically, absolute truth. Absolute truth. The league is very much too dependent on Caitlin Clark. And they did a horrible job. They did a horrible job of trying to get people to watch other teams. The league is way too dependent on Caitlin Clark.
Nobody is watching. Now, however, local records were being broken in ticket sales, television ratings were rising, and merchandise was selling out in a matter of hours. Therefore, why weren't the returns, if they were finally here, are players getting their fair share? One of the WNBA's most prominent voices, A'ja Wilson, wasn't holding back. She stepped to the microphone in May 2025 after the league turned down the Players Association's compensation proposal. "We're serious," she said, "and we will not give up until we achieve what is right." Players silently protested by showing up to games wearing statement shirts. They were asserting, not inquiring. But it wasn't universally accepted. Radio hosts ridiculed the initiative on sports talk stations from Nashville to Los Angeles. One host yelled, "Let's be honest. How many people, besides Caitlin Clark, can even mention a player in the WNBA? The league, he dismissed, was a manufactured product, forced upon the public not out of genuine demand, but rather by media hype. Like the worn-out celebrity of late-night hosts like Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert, it was all smoke and mirrors to him. Once funny figures who, in his opinion, had long since lost their appeal. Although this dismissal wasn't new, it hurt more now since WNBA players were citing specific statistics for the first time. In 2025, ticket sales increased by more than 38%. Even some NBA teams found it difficult to sell out numerous stadiums during Indiana Fever games. The league's collaboration with well-known sponsors like Google and Nike was generating actual advertising revenue. If the money is coming in, why is the value still being questioned? They queried once more. There was more to the solution than economics. It has to do with perception. Many members of the public were unaware of the whole story, while players battled for safer travel conditions, equitable marketing, and higher compensation. The demands were dismissed as whining or entitled by the critics, who failed to take into account the actual working conditions these athletes faced against. The call for increased compensation wasn't made in a vacuum. It resulted from decades of bearing a league on their shoulders, sharing hotel rooms, enduring lengthy flights without charters, and frequently taking on second jobs abroad during the off-season in order to make ends meet. What do you think will happen if the players eventually make money but continue to demand basic compensation and respect? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Remember to subscribe, like, and share.